Finding your art style isn't what you've been told. Not only is the advice that lots of people give confusing and hard to follow, it might actually be actively damaging your art journey. This video is about fixing that and showing you a much simpler way to actually progress with your art and find your art style. See, the problem is that the internet and social media has made artists obsessed with this idea of having a recognizable style. It's everywhere. Artists get followers because their feed looks consistent. You scroll through Instagram and it seems like everyone else has figured it out. And then there's you, drawing different things, trying different brushes, painting things that look inconsistent. And now you start to think, I need to find my style. And that may sound harmless until it becomes a trap. Because once you start chasing consistency too early, you get scared to try new things. You start saying no to anything that doesn't match your imaginary aesthetic. You avoid certain colors, poses, and rendering techniques, just because you're worried it will look off-brand. But here's the problem. That early experimentation phase is literally where your future style is supposed to come from. If you skip that part, then you're basically building your style on nothing. So what can we do instead? Well, first, let's drop the myth. Style isn't this magical thing you discover. There's no hidden version of your art hiding inside you, waiting to be unlocked if you draw enough. Your style is just a combination of stuff you like, plus the things that you do repeatedly, often without even realizing it. And here's the freeing part. You don't need to force a style into existence. But then, what should you be doing instead of stressing over style? One of the best exercises for this, which I haven't really heard any artists talk about, is what I like to call the swipe and study method. This is a simple but powerful habit that you should try and instill into yourself. All you have to do is, in the future, whenever you come across any painting, illustration or sketch you like, just whip out your tablet or sketchbook and spend just 10 minutes doing a study of it, only trying to recreate the part that perked your monkey brain neurons the most. Setting a 10-minute timer here is crucial, since this will encourage you to keep things short, to only get the essentials down, and to negate any excuses or resistance you might have to just drawing instantly. And this study might be made easier with some of the brushes on my website, link in description. But importantly, don't worry about making it perfect. You're not copying to get a finished result, you're copying to observe. Focus on the brushwork, the colors, the shapes, the decisions that the artist made. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns in what you're drawn to, and that's when your style will gradually reveal itself. Because you're training yourself to naturally combine things you admire into something that feels like you. So what this really means is that we should try everything, which is really the opposite of what some people might tell you about, oh, you should really just focus on drawing one thing and one thing only if you want to develop a style. But I would argue that art is all about discovering yourself and enjoying the process. Especially when you're just starting out, you should play around and pick different genres. Use weird brushes, do one-for-one copies of artworks by random artists you admire. Don't worry about originality yet, this is just exploration. And this ties in with the next exercise / concept we have to talk about, which is that of an art diet. Your art diet is one of the most powerful things that you can control when developing your style, and it's something you should be intentional about. Think of it like training your visual taste buds. The more high quality, inspiring, and varied meals you can feed it, the more refined and unique your style will become. The magic happens when those different ingredients combine in ways only you would think of to use. But to actually implement an art diet in a way that works, You have to treat it like a deliberate habit, not something you leave up to chance. Start by creating a dedicated, organized inspiration folder using something like a PureRef or Milano, not just a messy camera roll. This is where you'll save anything that visually excites you, whether it's from Instagram, Pinterest, movies, or even a photo you took yourself. Break this folder into categories like lighting, color palettes, composition, and so on, so you can easily pull references based on what you're working on. Then, keeping in mind what we learned from the swipe and study method, set aside regular visual training time in your week, even if it's just 10 minutes a day where you flip through the images and do quick observational sketches or studies. The point isn't to copy perfectly, it's to train your eyes to recognize and internalize what works. Now, there's two last things that I wish every artist knew about art styles, and it's something I think everyone should hear, and yet too few artists are told. Firstly, the style you love looking at isn't always the one you'll love drawing. You might love hyper-polished, moody realism, but actually hate spending 30 hours rendering every little detail and corner. Of course, you might admire insanely detailed line art, but get bored doing it yourself. And that's okay, because sometimes you stumble into a new technique, or color palette, or subject, and suddenly it just clicks, and you actually enjoy the process. That's what you should be chasing. Not aesthetics, not consistency, just excitement. That's where your style lives. The last thing that no one will tell you about finding your art style, and yet the thing that is perhaps the most important, sucking at some things is what defines your art style. See, people online will tell you to master all the fundamentals or fix every weakness before you worry about style. But here's the thing, if you were perfect at everything, you'd be able to draw and paint everything, and your work wouldn't have a consistent voice at all. The quirks and gaps in your skill set are often what gives your art its identity. Maybe you simplify hands because you hate drawing them. Maybe you skip complex backgrounds. Maybe you stretch proportions to hide anatomy mistakes. Those aren't just the flaws. They're the pattern that makes your work recognizably yours. But while it is still important to learn the fundamentals, you shouldn't try to master everything. This concept that your limitations is what actually defines your art style is something you should keep in mind, and is also something few artists will let you in on. But remember, all of this will come down to practice. To help you out, you can check out the exact brushes I've used in my tutorial videos on my website, link in the description. I hope this video has inspired you to pick up that pen and start creating. Share this video with a friend to help them out, and like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.